Hello and welcome to MINKA Vision. I'm your host, Tricia Davies, and this is the space where we chat with our practitioners to find out more about their spiritual journey and their practice. Today, my guest is Viviana Vargas, who also goes by Yura Sapi. They are an interdisciplinary artist, activist, and facilitator. Viviana is passionate about changing the world by working with others to create liberated spaces that uplift marginalized voices, experiences, and storytelling. They run Advancing Arts Forward, a movement to advance equity, inclusion, and social justice through the arts by uplifting, healing, and encouraging artists and activists to explore their potential to thrive. Yura Sapi, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
I'm so excited to talk with you today. Whenever I see someone who has an interesting name, I always want to know more. So would you mind telling the story of your name?
Yeah, so Yura Sapi is my name in Quechua, my Quechua name, and Quechua is an indigenous language and peoples in an area of Ecuador, also similar and connected to Quechua language, which is more in Peru and Bolivia and connected to the Incas, indigenous people. And yeah, I got my Quechua name when I was starting to learn Quechua, and basically it's connected to a part of nature for me, and so it is roots of the tree, Yura Sapi, Yura being the tree and Sapi the roots. Also, it's white roots, raíz blanca and raíz del árbol. So there's like multiple meanings there, which I learned when communicating and getting to know more Quechua cultures and community. I also use Yura Sapi as my artist name in the work I've been doing recently, but I can talk more about that once we get into the other questions.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. I love that that you're learning your native language, because there's just so much that can't be translated, you know? So it's so important for us to decolonize in that way and reclaim our native tongues.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about myself and about the colonization process through learning a bit more of Quechua. I need to get back into it, and I know that the pandemic has made things a little bit harder, but yeah, just even like, for example, the genders, there isn't a he and she pronoun. It's one, it's bi, and so for me that's very affirming, gender affirming, since I use gender neutral pronouns in English and Spanish. But to just think about how cultures came from different truths before colonization.
Yeah.
So
That is so beautiful. Yeah, so you were talking about your artist name. Can you talk or just share with us what role does art play in your personal healing practice?
yeah, so I'm an artist. I would say that I started off more as an artist than a healer, and my healing practice really started with looking at the arts. About 2 years ago, I started actually connecting my artistic practice to how I was healing in a more specific way. I think always my involvement in the arts has been a release and something I enjoy, different from more academic types of learning and spaces. But even growing up, where I identified the arts and specifically theater as a passion. But yeah, so recently I started writing poetry, and it was as a release of various difficult, traumatizing moments I had actually working at a predominantly white institution in theater. And so I started writing poetry. I was making jewelry, wrapping stones, a practice. My dad's a jewelry maker, and so I was kind of taking that into my work, and yeah, connecting my healing journey with with releasing in that specific way of writing my thoughts and emotions and desires and rage at times too. So yeah, that's how it's kind of connected, and still now I think definitely my poetry and making art as a release and very connected to how I'm healing is super important.
Yeah, I love that. I love that art gives us the freedom to kind of just mine all of our experiences, you know, everything that we've gone through, and just create something totally new and beautiful with it. With advancing arts, you say that you want to create liberated spaces. Can you talk a little bit about what a liberated space is? You know, because we want, I hear a lot, and we strive to create brave spaces and safe spaces. And I feel like liberated, like my ears just perked up when I heard that, because it seems like it goes a step forward.
Yeah, when I was thinking about how I wanted to describe it for this question, actually the brave and safe space came to mind too. And this is from conversations I've been having with different groups in these kind of restorative justice and transformative justice and healing conversations around what kinds of spaces we're creating for these new ways of living. So a liberated space for me is a space where we are free, I think, in a society where most of us are not that way. And so creating a container, a little piece of something for, you know, an hour or two or three, where we can practice living in a free and a liberated way. To be who we are, to speak from our truths, to hold space for our ancestors, to hold space for our flaws and our strengths. I think when it comes to the idea of safe and brave, it's a safe space for the most marginalized and a brave space for the most privileged. And taking everything from what you are on both of those sides,
Yeah.
in whatever moment you are at that time.
Yeah, I love that. That really really succinctly explains that concept. Thank you so much for sharing that. Can you talk about your workshop that's coming up for the new moon, which is what, on Tuesday?
It's on Monday, the workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah, the workshop. I from doing these workshops on around the new moon, I noticed that when I do them on the actual new moon date, there ends up being a lot of technical difficulties, a lot of like energy difficulties. And so I've actually tried to shift and let the actual new moon date be a time for my own ritual and practice, and do this workshop a little bit around it. Yeah, but moon self-care, self-love workshop, taking the energy from new moon, a really good time to be setting intentions for yourself in the cycle. And so we're looking at self-care as self-love, the idea that taking care of yourself is loving yourself, and loving yourself is taking care of yourself, and taking, you know, these 3 hours of the day, of the week, of the month to invest in ourselves in that way is something to really be proud of, and to go forth. So my strategy here, and how I share this practice that I personally use, I've been using it now for 2 years, and actually the first time I shared the practice with folks was at MINKA in the physical space a couple of years ago. And so it's nice to be back, and being able to share it again. So we're going to go into 8 different areas of what self-care, self-love might be for you. There's many different areas, but these 8 we're going to look into: physical, psychological / mental health, workplace or student life, home life, emotional / relationships, spiritual, sexual, and financial self-care. And so we're going to look, you know, holistically and intentionally at each of these different areas, and discuss and share in community some resources for you, what might work for you. Ultimately, the biggest thing is that this is, you know, you get what you put into this.
Yeah.
And it's about checking in with yourself and asking yourself honestly, how am I doing in each of these areas? And separating them out, I think, has helped me at least really identify things that I might not see if I'm just thinking broadly.
Yeah, I really love how intentional that is, because I feel like, you know, things get kind of overwhelming and we just kind of put self-care into a box and don't really think about it broadly. So I love that you're including like a framework for, you know, how you practice for others.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, that's what it's always just been about. Is this is something that has worked for me and is really important for me, and I want to share it with you. And also, it's an opportunity for me to check in with myself. I noticed this year, January, February, and March, I was working on another business in Bogota, where I'm at right now, and I found myself very much invested in that, and it was a physical space, and so we were just all day, every day there, and I wasn't doing these check-ins with myself, and I also wasn't sharing the workshops. And I now noticed how that was seriously affecting me, and that it is important for me to do this work for myself. So that's why I share it with others too.
Yeah, you know, this year has just been such a unprecedented, you know, energy. So that's why I love working with the new moon cycles, just because it gives some, I don't want to say routine, but just, it's like really reassuring to rely on like the nature cycles, you know, which are always there for us. I just love that.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah. Let's see. Oh, I was reading somewhere that you're working on a Latinx like community theater or something like that in a few years. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so I'm part of the Latinx Theater Commons,
Mm.
which is a collective, a movement of folks in the Latinx community in the US working in theater, wanting to support Latinx stories and voices in many different ways that shows up. But it also is, you know, it's a group of very light or white Latinx people, similar
Yeah.
to myself. And we're grappling with trying to address and repair the harm that we have caused for our darker skin Afro Latinx siblings. And so the 2020 summit is basically something that has been articulated as something that's happening and that we're investing in this. But the work is already begun. The work is ongoing now. And yeah, ultimately, I see my role in this is, you know, as a participant and as someone who is producing in a way, really figuring out how we can support Afro Latinx and Black Latinx folks to really take the spotlight and help and guide these conversations and guide
Yeah.
the future of the Latinx Theater Commons, because right now it's not doing enough. And that's also, you know, acknowledging the truths of the Latinx identity of being in white supremacist United States, and dealing with those complexities of being both, you know, the oppressed and also the oppressor, and
Yeah.
sometimes when it comes to the white and mestizo side of Latinidad.
Yeah. I saw that and I was just like, this is so necessary, and like I hadn't seen anything like it. So I was like, I need to ask more about this, because it's just so important, you know, to be at the forefront of these conversations that haven't really been um, super, you know, public or in the mainstream yet. You know, like it's not something that we're, I think, ready as a community. And I'm speaking of like, you know, colorism in the Black community. Like it's something that, you know, it's like it's difficult, you know. And so the more and more that we have these conversations and create these spaces to have these conversations, the more healing that we can bring to our communities.
Absolutely, yeah. I feel like I've been having a lot of conversations and thoughts around the people of color, or even Black, Indigenous people of color, buckets and umbrella that can, it has been helpful to help, us come together and be able to connect, basically connecting around our oppression from white supremacy. But it also erases certain truths and generalizes a lot of things, and doesn't help us necessarily address colorism.
Yeah.
And so being a part of these BIPOC and people of color communities, eventually we will get to that. And so at this moment in my communities, it feels like we're at this. And yeah, I think in some spaces I'm the most radical, and in some spaces I'm like, you need to catch up because you're
Yeah, yeah.
you're messing up here. So
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for your work, everything that you're doing to advance arts and and heal yourself in the community. How can folks get in touch with you?
yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook, Advancing Arts Forward and Yura Sapi. And you can subscribe to my mailing list at advancingartsforward.org. Yeah, and I hope to see you all at MINKA soon.
Yes, yes. If not in person, then definitely virtually.
Yeah,
Well, thank you again so much, and talk to you again next time.
thank you.